Okay, husband, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So, we took questions from our friends on, I guess, things they wanted to ask us about being newlyweds and our experiences and our journey, to marriage, to marital bliss. So, I'm just going to read the questions and we're going to answer. So, separate. How did you two prepare for marriage mentally?
I think that it was mainly from a spiritual standpoint. And when you say how did we prepare mentally, I think it was a lot of just us doing our own thing, making sure we was right ourselves. I mean, for me personally, it was a spiritual experience that I had to go through because I didn't want to seek nobody else but God to make sure that I'm doing the right thing and doing it the right way. So for me, it was all spiritual. I knew how to be a good man, but I wanted to have the Holy Spirit and conviction to make sure I'm doing the right thing. And I wanted the guidance of God. So, for me, it was a spiritual thing.
As a woman, and as for me, everything is a spiritual journey, and you want to make sure you're seeking God in every decision you make, especially marriage. But mentally, it was really about understanding my role as a wife, which is very different than the role I'm accustomed to living every day. Making sure that it was my desire to come home and serve my husband, which is, when you single, you be like, whatever, you're going to get up and get the stuff yourself. But, I mentally wanted to be, a wife who was always there for her husband. And so I just kind of started putting my mind towards those thoughts and kind of training myself on what things I wanted to be conscious and intentional about doing, because some stuff isn't natural. You have to make a conscious effort to do it. And so, yeah, that's what it was for me, just kind of figuring out what kind of wife I wanted to be in, knowing my role as a wife, and just kind of prepping myself for walking into that role. What topics should couples discuss before marriage?
Personally, I think counseling.
You need some good counseling.
You can discuss all the topics you want to discuss, but you need professional help to make sure you're being guided in the right way. And I think we had great counseling. We had great counseling, especially when we hear about other people's counseling. Not to compare, but our pastor was making sure we was in agreement, and that word is very important. You need to be in agreement about everything. When I say everything, everything. And that's what I think. You can discuss with all you want, but you need to be challenged as a couple going into marriage.
So then I just talk about some of the things that were great that we got from counseling, that are discussions I feel like everybody should have before they get married. I think right away they asked about love languages. Being able to know and identify what makes your spouse feel loved versus what you think will make them feel loved is really important. Knowing we did like your 5 and 5.
5 and 5.
Yeah, and so that was like the top 5 things that you like or love about that person, the top 5 things you hate and don't like about that person, your expectations for your spouse. What was it? Your goals for your marriage, and I can't remember what the last one was. But those alone, because everyone likes to talk about the stuff they have alike, but no one wants to talk about the stuff they don't have alike. And I'm like, when you're committed to somebody for life, you don't have to deal with those dislikes every single day.
That's true.
So, if you talk about it beforehand, at least y'all can figure out what the compromise is going to be, or you can put some things in place that's going to help you deal with whatever that discomfort is, as a unit. And then expectations are huge, because I think a lot of times we go into relationships and people aren't on the same page with what they expect from each other. in our heads we have, they should just expect this from me, but then they be expecting something different. So it's good to know ahead of time, this is what they expect from me as a wife, this is what they expect from me as a husband, so that you know whether or not you can give that or not, and if you're willing to before you say I do. So we need to do that in non-romantic relationships too. But yeah, it's just all that we got from counseling though. We just got really great counseling. And one thing I think one thing I would add is if there's like old hurts or like old wounds or things like that you're still dealing with, I think that's a conversation that's good to have. Because if you're not completely healed from something in your past, there's going to be something that's going to happen that's going to trigger it. And your spouse could be really caught off guard. They have no idea where that's coming from or where that wound is rooted at. So I just think that's a good conversation to have too with your spouse, your potential spouses. These are some things that I wrestle with for these reasons, and just being transparent, being vulnerable, and being honest about where you are can help. All right, next question is, at what moment did you two know without a doubt that you were going to get married?
This is an interesting question. I mean, I always say we so different than a traditional couple because it wasn't a moment or nothing like that. It was something that we really had a discussion about. We really sit down and talked about it. We was actually engaged before I even gave her the ring. We sat down, we took it very seriously, and we weighed the pros and the cons. So it wasn't a moment. But I knew I wanted to marry her. I mean, and that wasn't really a question for me. But we really weighed our pros and cons and sit down and had a discussion. So that's from my standpoint.
Ooh, a moment without a doubt that you were going to get married. I think we always knew that, like, we were made to be married to each other. Mm-hmm. It just took us a while to just really align our lives individually with what we were supposed to be at before, it could happen. So we can go back to when we first, got together. I think then we knew, that, there's nobody else who's going to compliment, him like me, and vice versa. And it just didn't work out. We were just pushing something out of season, and we just need to be seasoned and go through a different kind of process. So it was just, I think we just kind of knew right away, and it just took us a while to get our lives in line and in order to be ready to be married. So
yeah, that's the best way to put it.
Our next question is, how was the transition from living in two different cities to living in the same household?
Really wasn't no transition for me. Just transitioned.
It wasn't hard for us. I know a lot of people say like it's a lot different when you're living with somebody after marriage, but I'm like, we were not only in different households, we were in two different cities, and it was just kind of seamless for us. I know that's not realistic, but
that's why I say we so different.
It was.
Well, we spent a lot of time getting to know each other, knowing each other's families, preparing each other for certain things. I think that's the best thing. Don't put your spouse in a situation and they don't know what's gonna happen. I think we did a lot of doing that. I always prepared her for whatever my family had to throw at her, my child, and so our transition together wasn't hard at all. Matter of fact, it was easy.